Hi, everybody. I am Monica Sigmon, Sony Artisan of Imagery, and we have started a new series with B&H and Sony called Sony Alpha Female, The Interviews. And this series is spotlighting creators from our Sony Alpha Female community. And I am super excited to be able to be the one to interview people. And I am really excited that today's guest is Brooke Shaden. Hello.
Hi.
Brooke. How are you?
I'm so glad to be doing this with you. And
So glad.
I know that we have a limited time and it's going to be so challenging
I
because
know.
you and I just talk for hours.
I know. Usually like under the cover, I mean, not together under the covers, but like in a hotel, like across the little nightstand. Yes, we do. So,
Yeah.
and we chatted briefly yesterday. And so, but I have like, look at all of these things that I think I know a lot about you, but there's a lot in here that I think many people don't know about you. So I'm excited for them, and I've gotten a lot of people who are like, I can't wait. And so we'll see if we have time for questions, but you're right, we have a lot to go through. So Sony Alpha Female Community is something that Sony does that I think is so unique to our brand, and just really creating an environment where women can support each other, and creators can ask questions and guide each other. And for me, it's a very special community, particularly because that's how I started to become a part of the Sony family. And it has since become the source of some of my most special friendships. And Brooke, you are definitely one of those. And we would not have this friendship without the Sony Alpha Female community. So,
Yeah.
uh, so I'm very, very grateful for that. I'm going to just briefly summarize your bio for anybody out there, for the 1% of people watching that might not know who you are. Brooke Shaden is a conceptual storyteller who destigmatizes grief. She lives in the mountains of northern Arizona. She has fostered 6 children and spends her time on long hikes, jumping in cold water, and writing novels when she's not focused on visual art. There's a lot more, but I think we're gonna cover this in some of our questions. So the thing that I always use to describe Brooke is that you are the most prolific creator I know. And it's the art is constant. It's just, it feels on our end like a constant source of energy and art coming from you. Are a font of art, right?
Yeah.
And so creators on this side don't always feel like that. But I'm wondering, would you define yourself as prolific? Do you feel like you put out an exceptional amount of work?
I actually do, but it's taken some like rethinking about this topic because I started in 2009. That's when I picked up a camera. And when I first started, I was creating like 200 pictures a year, like an insane amount of work. And I wasn't releasing all of them, but I was releasing probably 100 a year. And it was born from that passion that comes over you when you start a new thing, and it's so exciting and it's so new, and you want to learn quickly and you want to be the best, and you want to get there faster. And over the years it's definitely dwindled. Like just today I shared that I've created, we're at June 2024 right now. It's been half of a year, and so I've released 15 pictures this year so far, which, as you can see, is like way less than it used to be, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not creating all the time. And so that's, in that sense, I think I am prolific, in that there's almost never a day that goes by where I don't create something, whether it's writing, poetry, an image. Sometimes it might be some sculpture or mixed media thing, or, just something. And I think that that's really, like, we need to kind of shift how we think about being prolific, because it's not just what you release to the public, but how ingrained creativity is in your life day to day. And for me, it's a constant thing. And that's why I think that I can agree with you in that, I hear this from people a lot, that they say, like, you're so passionate, and it's like weirdly passionate. And I think that it's just that I act on a lot of creativity, and I don't care if it's good. Like, that's the big difference, is that it can be bad, it can fail, and that's okay, but at least I did it and I can try again.
So do you feel like we talked about this yesterday? I thought it was going to be the beginning of a great conversation, and then we were like, no, shut it down. Gotta save it for tomorrow. But do you feel like all of the art that you create needs to be publicly consumed, or are you creating things that are just for yourself? Is that okay? That the for me, the pressure is always if I'm making something, it should be for somebody else. It should be, I think, coming from the portrait world. I
Yeah.
feel like if I'm creating something, then it needs to be publicly consumed, but then that kind of runs over into things I'm just doing on my own for fun. And I still feel that pressure, and I don't like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that tremendously because I feel like I'm a 50-50 artist in this regard. I always create for myself. Like I will go out and do anything, any adventure, any creation because I want it and it's something that I am invested in. But I also know that if I'm interested in something, then necessarily someone else is interested in the same thing because there are billions of people on this planet and I just can't be that unique, like it's statistically impossible. So I know that even though I'm creating something because it speaks to me, I'm pretty sure it'll speak to somebody else too. And so I don't feel that I have to release everything, but when I do release something, I do it with the confidence that if I was invested in it, then somebody else will be too. And I think that's a really great way to approach it. Like, what interests me? What lights my fire? And then knowing somebody else is going through that same thing or is interested in that topic right now.
Do you ever create art for art's sake?
Yeah, I think every day. I think, like I'm not approaching art the way that you might or that a commercial photographer might. Like I'm not approaching it because I need to sell that thing. Not that I don't. Like this is also my career. This is my business. And I do need to sell some things, but I know that like there's always tomorrow to make something that somebody likes better. Or if I need to pivot, I can pivot tomorrow. But right now, what's in my mind is always how can I be completely present? How can I go make something for the sake of making it, for the sake of having the adventure? And then later I'll worry about the rest. And that's really like a beautiful way to run a business that I know is very rare, where you can't be like, hey, people come to my studio. I'm going to do whatever I want. And then maybe you'll like it. Like that's
Yeah.
not the way that you can approach it, but I can approach it that way to a degree. And I do. I'm a very, very present person in everything that I do, whether it's a hike or a conversation or an art piece. And so when I'm making it, like I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not worried about what gallery it's going to go in or who's going to purchase it. I'm just there doing that thing.
And that's something I think that's really important for photographers and commercial photographers too, because there is a way that we can do that. And I think it's through personal projects,
Yeah.
through artist projects, through something that I don't have to worry about selling on the other side. So if I'm wanting to explore, like right now, I'm doing some black and white work and I'm having people come in, but I'm taking money off the table mentally because I'm not here to sell that work. I'm here to explore a skill set and refine that skill set that then maybe I'll add a product line for. But I think that is a way we can get around it.
That's a great point. And it brings me to something I've been thinking a lot about, which is that um, we, at least in my work, I tend to think about the work as being very, I'm not sure what the right word is, but um, like everything is a personal project to me. Everything,
Right.
no matter what. And and yet, when I find myself in periods where I'm not as inspired as I could be, or the work doesn't turn out as inspired, it's because I've taken that personal project mindset away. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I've done like a lot of weird stuff lately that's very experimental that maybe the masses aren't going to enjoy. So what can I do now that they will enjoy? And when I switch into that mindset, and it's not a conscious thing, it's something that I think we do because of social media, because of selling our work. It's just something that kind of creeps up in the background, like, oh, well, what will sell better though?
Mhm.
And then you start making that. And for me, whenever that happens, I find myself, I'll look back at the last few things I made and think, I've done that before. Like I know that work. I've created that work years in the past. I know that it will be popular, but it doesn't do
Right.
anything for me. And then that's where I feel like I failed as an artist, is when I let that mindset creep in, where I'm not working on it for a personal reason as much as because I need it to be popular. And I try to catch myself, but it's something that everybody does, I think. And I think that it's
Sure.
very easy to think that certain artists don't run into that issue, but I think everybody does.
And I'm really glad you're straightforward about that, because I do think in this age of social media, like you said, whether we're aware of it or not, it just starts creeping in, and you kind of notice, oh, people didn't respond to this one as well as that one, or
Yeah.
whatever. And so then that then change the trajectory of what I'm creating. So
Right.
before we get too far along into our conversation, I know you have some slides.
Mhm.
So I want to let you share your screen and talk, just kind of introduce yourself again for anybody who's
Great.
not as familiar with you.
Okay, I'm gonna so do my best to share this, and I'm like really inept at sharing my screen, so I know that this is like gonna be ridiculous. Is it
And
doing it?
yes. And of course,
Okay.
we open with you tied up. Like this is
Okay, is it full screen now? Did that work?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. Okay, so I wanted to share this first because I feel like it's a really good representation of me, like in my natural habitat, which is ridiculous every day. This was in my bedroom. I'm just always doing something silly, and that like I realized halfway through that I could have done this better, but I'm now, like tied up in my bedroom and I can't do anything about that. So just some examples of times that I found myself just being ridiculous, which is most weeks. Like I typically once a week am like, oh gosh, should I have done that? That was probably really silly or unsafe, or could have done this better. This was a particularly fun shoot on the side of a highway covered in paint, which there were many cars who had stopped on the highway to watch this photo shoot happen. I had a straw sticking out of my mouth so I could breathe. Just
Did they stop just to watch, or did anybody ask if you were okay?
Oh no, they were just watching. I think I was giggling so much, I think they thought it was fine.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. This is just me in some water, which I have like 1,000 pictures that look just like this, of just like me jumping in whatever gross, disgusting ponds I can find anywhere in the world. And I'm showing you this because my process is so very much a physical process, where I'm trying to get out there and do the work and be in the environments and experience what the character is experiencing in the images. And I love it. Like you can see the joy, pure joy on my face. So I thought I'd just share a few of my works with you in case you're not familiar with the work that I do produce. This was shot in my garage, and my work is very simple in nature. So there's no light here except for a tiny window in my garage. The backdrop was just the darkness of my garage. I'm just standing in the little pool of light that exists there. The wings here were from a dead bird that I found and I photographed separately to edit in. And then, of course, there are three of me here, and so I'm just trying to, I'm doing self-portraits, and I'm trying to make this as fun for myself and as moody as I can for the final picture. I don't think they're all quite as moody as that one. This is one of my happier pictures, even though the rainbow is a little sad looking. But this is again, like I composite a lot of my work as well if I can't be on location or in that environment. So I shot this of myself with my umbrella in my studio, and then painted a watercolor rainbow, which I added into the background, and shot stock images of clouds and fields and all of that. And so that happens a lot. So here I have another one in my garage that I wanted to share. This was in the same exact spot as the last one, like exactly the same. You know what? Don't worry. If you're freaked out, just go with it, embrace it. This is that window that I mentioned that just lets this light stream in. And this was for me a commentary on, well, let me take you back. There's my favorite genre of painting is dead animal paintings. This is not relevant to anything. I'm just going to tell you anyway. And I love dead animal paintings. As a vegan, this is very strange, but I just love them. And so I thought that I would recreate one of those paintings, but with a human instead of an animal all strung up. Just kind of my favorite thing. Uh,
Random, that we call that Tuesday in Brooke's world.
that's right. A lot of my images, though, this was shot right here in this room that I'm in right now. And a lot of my images are self-portraits, yes, but that try to speak to larger issues that I see happening, not just in my life, but in other people's lives, in the world. And in this case, the idea of self-harm and how the different ways that we do harm to ourselves intentionally or unintentionally. So I'm always looking sort of outward to see what is relevant in my life and how can that relate to other people's lives. So in this case, feeling like the stuffing's coming out of you, like a very simple concept, that I'm trying to bring about visually in a simple way so that you can connect with that core idea pretty easily. This was a self-portrait that I created about a year ago, and this was sort of a commentary on living our lives in the public eye, sharing everything that we do and what that looks like, and how we're so hesitant to share the dark parts of our lives or the hurtful parts. And so we frame our lives in this very particular way. This one is a really special image to me about loss and grief. And, there are a lot of ways that I try to build my images with symbolism. This is a pretty good image, I think, to look at in that regard, where you've got a person laying here in bed alone. And because she's alone, you might know that that symbolizes loss. You've got the vines creeping up around the bed, which symbolizes time passing, the indent on the pillow where maybe somebody's head used to lay, the hole in the mattress where perhaps you're feeling the absence of somebody who used to be there. So there are a lot of ways that I try to use symbolism in what I do. I don't even like looking at this one, actually. Skip that. This one, every once in a while, I employ some help. In this case, my husband's hands. Some lovely little ants that I had photographed outside. This one, I saran wrapped myself to a tree, which I didn't because I couldn't do it, but my friend did. It was harder on her, I think. She got really nauseous and dizzy trying to run around that tree so many times. But I really try to be in the moment, be there. This is a new piece that I haven't shown anyone yet at all. So
I was going to say, I haven't seen this.
yeah, it's brand new from a brand new series that I'll be releasing later this year. I'm really excited about it. These are from a series that I did called Night Terrors because I have chronic night terrors as an adult, which is pretty unusual. And so these are sort of some scenes that represent my imagination, my dream world. This is one of my favorite pictures that I've created in my career. I made this out in the forest where I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. I found these two elk skeletons and decided to use them in an interesting way for a photo shoot. And then this is one of my favorite images. Monica had asked me to put in some of my favorites. And so this and the last one are really sort of high up there for me. This was one of those images where it resonated with me in such a deep way, and then also resonated with an audience in a very deep way. And I think that's a very rare thing for artists to find a piece of work that is so resonant across the board. And so this is that one for me. I thought I'd share a little bit of how I made it, which was in a rare instance in a studio that I used to have. And everything else, though, is largely in camera. I just added a sky into the background there. So I just wanted to take one last look at how this image was built, and then I'll be done, just to share a little bit of my process. I photographed this handheld standing above the mattress. I couldn't put my tripod on the mattress because it was an air mattress and I kept knocking my camera over when I got on. So I photographed myself separately and added myself in. And then I have this edge of the bed, which was actually the literal edges of the mattress that you see on the outside edges of this picture. I just flipped them so that it looked like they were going inward, and then added some shading to them, and then smoothed that out a little bit. I don't know why I was missing an arm, but there's my arm. Okay, brightening it up, adding in the vines and texture, and that's that. I will stop sharing now.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So while we're talking about the way you shoot things, we have to ask, what gear are you using?
Yeah, I'm using my Sony A7R5 pretty much exclusively. I have it right here. Hold on. Oh no, this is the wrong one. This is my A7R4. not the right one. Well, what I was going to show you, which I'll show you this one anyway, is that what I like about it is that the screen flips out completely
Right.
on R5, and that is extremely valuable for me. Like, it's really funny, just the smallest things make the biggest difference in a camera. And so what I needed was a camera with a high enough megapixel count that also had a flip screen, which just I just could not, it was not happening, and it finally has happened. And so that's what I use. I use the 24-70 GM2 lens, and that's like all I use. Like, that is it. I have my secondary camera here, which is the R4, and I use that for filming mostly, or if I need a second angle on something, I might set that up. But pretty much it's just me and my A7R5 and my 24-70 GM2. Yeah.
And your tripod, sometimes it has a plate, sometimes we forget the plate and
I am like
rubber
notorious.
banding your
Yes.
camera to the tripod.
I always keep rubber bands in my bag because the amount of times that I do not have that plate on the tripod is pretty outrageous. Like, I think at this point I'm never gonna change, like
No,
sometimes
it's
you
working.
have hope, but no.
It's working for you. I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect anything else. Okay, so I feel like I want to clarify because you've talked a little bit already about creating art that you want people to identify those to help identify emotions that they might not be able to express. But anybody that follows you also knows that you're very straightforward about, I'm not here to make art to impress you. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care
Yeah.
if you like it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I want you to explain how those two thoughts are not opposite.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a difference between creating impact in somebody's life and wanting somebody to like you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need people to think the images that I make are great. I don't need them to like me as an individual. But what I do want is for you to feel something and to question why you feel that thing when you look at it. And I think that that's a very different thing from creating something that somebody else will enjoy or that they will like. And I'm not interested in that. And I'll use an example of an image I just showed, which is that picture of me laying with the elk skeletons there. I released that picture and I received so many nasty messages from people after I released that. And I mean, people, everything from like, I hope that you die in the forest and somebody finds your body and uses it to take pictures with, to like, but then, the opposite of like, this is so moving. Looking at this picture, I realized something about myself, things like that. And there's such a wide spectrum, and I'm like equally delighted to get that positive comment as I am that horrible comment. And the reason is because I want you to feel something. I think that there's such a like, art can be so washed out. Like, people are so scared to share something that might be controversial, and I get it. I'm also scared sometimes. But there's something so delightful about making someone feel something and recognizing that if they have that extreme reaction, it's probably because they need to examine something in themselves that's making them have that reaction. And I think that's super cool. I mean, we're all just humans. We have opinions, we have beliefs, we have feelings. Why not put that into our art? And so I really like that image was really fun for me. And I also hope that if I die in the forest, that somebody uses my body to take pictures. I'm just saying,
So
like,
was
go.
the outrage more that they were concerned where the skeletons came from and how you were like
I think
exploiting
that it
them,
was a
or what was the
spiritual
outrage?
thing. I'm not really sure. I think that some people might find that disrespectful, and I don't even disagree. I mean, I think I don't find it disrespectful, but if you do, I think that's a valid position to take. I think that if you find it disgusting, that's a valid position to take. I just happen not to,
Mhm.
despite all of the flesh-eating beetles that crawled out of there. But anyway, yeah, I think that it's all valid. And I think that that's something to recognize, that it's okay for people to feel negative things. Like, we feel like it's not okay, or that should be shut down, or, that person's bad because they've expressed something negative. But I don't really see it that way. Now, could they have said it nicer? Yes,
Right.
but that's a different topic.
That's a different conversation. I
Yeah.
feel like we should start making our list for part 2 of this interview because we're going to get cut off. And
Yeah.
so we're going to add that to part 2 of our list. Okay. So, that kind of went into one of my questions about how do you deal with the haters. So I think we've covered that. Is there any one little gem or morsel of advice you can give to others who are not as resilient, maybe?
Yes, and I want to be clear, like I am not also not resilient. I would say I am in a lot of ways, but if somebody attacks my character, I get very upset about that. So there are different ways that we have resiliency, but the number one thing that I would say is that you never know how you're impacting somebody's life, and we tend to think that that one comment, that one thing that somebody said, that's it. Like they're always going to think that. And that's not true. People's opinions continue to evolve as your art continues to evolve. And one of the best lessons that I ever learned about this was when a man came to a talk that I did, and at the very end, he waited to chat with me, and he said, one time years ago, I sent you a really hateful email about how much I hated you and your art. And I just wanted you to know that I've had a lot of life experience since then. And now I realize I just needed to see your art at that time. And it made me really upset. And that was
Mhm.
very eye opening for me because, at that time, I'm sure that I was upset by that email, whatever it was. I didn't look it up, but I'm sure it was upsetting for me. And so to realize now that he had an experience that evolved him, that brought him back to my work in a positive way, you just never know and if that's going to happen. So looking at the comments as being this is it, this is how they feel and it'll never change is incorrect. And so just letting yourself remember we're all on a journey and that will evolve.
I love that. I hope I hope that people are really listening to that because I think that affects a lot of people in a lot of negative ways and can hinder the art that they produce. Certainly the art that they show, much less the art that they produce. So I
Yeah, and just as a very tiny tangent to that, the other big problem is that people feel ignored about their art, Like we release it and it's like, is anybody looking at this?
right,
Like, do you notice me at all?
right.
And the same advice goes for that though, which is that you might release something and think nobody cares, nobody likes this, but you don't know if they're gonna somebody else will see it 3 years from now, and then that's the time that it'll really hit for them. So, it's just the art that we create, we make it and we release it and we're done. Like we
Mhm.
tend to think of it as like, that's it, I did that thing and now I'm going to move on. And like that exists in its little bubble as I released it. But that's never true. Like it keeps going with us. It stays part of our journey. And maybe it's not the right time for it, but maybe it will be in the future.
That's great. I love it. Would you say that photography itself as the art form is what you're passionate about, or is it a means to an end?
It's a means to an end. I don't even really consider myself a photographer, if I'm honest, which is a thing I should stop saying probably. But I don't I've never been a techie person, like a gear person. It all stresses me out. And that's why I'm so pleased to have a camera system that is easy for me to use and that I can use without having to think about it very much. Because for me, it is just this thing that's sort of entered my life and it lets me tell these stories that I love to tell. And but I'm definitely a multidisciplinary artist and I don't talk about the other art forms as much as I do this one, but like I'm working on my second novel right now. I've written a ton of poetry. I love ceramics. I do some mixed media with paint and stuff like that. And in the future, I hope to get into installation art or performance art or something like that. And it just keeps growing. So yeah, I'm so not a photographer, like not a photographer's photographer,
Got it. Okay. Sorry, I'm like jotting notes and like moving things around on my paper because
Heck
I'm
yeah.
like, okay, we've got 29 minutes. Um, why grief? Why is that such an important theme in your work, in your writings? I personally love when you are sharing a poem with your art. I
Yeah.
love that. That really always speaks to me. But why grief?
Well, this is something that goes back to, and this is like, if you listen to nothing else, listen to this, I think, as an artist. There's something in your life, probably from childhood, that triggered a way of thinking or a way of seeing the world that's really vital to the way that you exist now. And a lot of times, I think the best artists are very in touch with their why. Like, why, what was that first event that kicked off a different way of thinking, and what came next, and what came next? And I'm very in touch with that. Not to say that I'm a great artist, but that I at least am in touch with why I create. And my very first experience that I think really solidified the way that I see the world is when my cat died when I was 11, which is such a strange thing to like be the thing. But I remember it because it was a surprise. I didn't know we were going to put my cat down that day. She wasn't
Oh
very
my God.
old. Yeah, and we arrived, and when we arrived at the vet, then I realized what was happening. And I just remember, like, I really wanted to hold her as she died, and I did. And I remember feeling like I was just like, I remember shaking because I was trying to hold my tears in because I didn't want people to see that I was upset, which in
Mhm.
hindsight is very silly. But I just remember at the same time, while I was really upset, I was holding her, and I remember just like distinctly the feeling of her body going limp and how that felt,
Mhm.
and feeling like that's kind of beautiful and that's kind of interesting. And I'm also really upset, and like all those things together. And I only realized later that the way that I experienced that was perhaps a little different than how maybe other 11-year-olds would have experienced that. And I started to realize that I see a lot of beauty in dark things, that I naturally find death to be beautiful in some ways and horrifying in other ways. I'm not trying to say that like death is good, like that's great. It's terrifying and it's upsetting, it's sad, it's all those things, but there's also something very cyclical about it that I really am invested in. So I've taken that experience and several others into my work. And it was really when I started photography, I started saying, I create beauty in darkness. Like I started saying that right away, like from my first couple images that I ever made. And that became sort of my tagline across my whole career. And then as you live more life, experiences happen, and they inform the way that you create. And so for me, becoming a foster parent was a massive sort of shift in how and why I create, still focused on grief, but focusing now on impermanence and how we can sort of learn to let go, and how letting go opens up a lot more life experiences and opportunities for you, and ways to love. And so my tagline of finding beauty in darkness has not changed very much, but it's become much more refined over the years as I've examined my experiences and figured out how to incorporate them into my work and my message. So to me, it's important to answer your actual original question. To me, grief is important because we all experience it. It's a human trait that everybody knows and can understand quite deeply, but that a lot of people feel very resistant to. And for some reason, I'm very open to it. And I think that if you look at my, the last handful of years that I've spent fostering children, the number one thing that people say to me is, I could never do that. And that was not my response to that. And that's not my response to a lot of things that other people find difficult. Now, it is my response to a lot of other things people find difficult. But, to those darker, more grief intense situations, I find myself open to it. And I thought, if I'm open to it, there's some reason why. There's a way that I see this in a way that maybe somebody else isn't. And if I can make work that speaks to that, then maybe it'll open doors for other people to live a more grief positive life.
So it started as Beauty from Darkness. What is the refined version of that now?
So right, and then this will continue to change, and it has changed over the years. So right now, well, actually, let me take you back to 2018. I started creating a series called Samsara, where it was like very overtly about death. And at that time, I just wanted to create a grief positive movement. So that was my new, like more refined goal. And now my goal is to create work that essentially says that there is more life to be lived if we embrace impermanence, which is all a subset of finding beauty in darkness.
Please hold while I write down everything you just said. All right. I have a list of rapid fire,
Oh, yes.
and then we'll come back to some of the heavy stuff if we have time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, yeah, let's do rapid fire. Introvert or extrovert?
Mm, introverted extrovert.
Yep. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Movie or book?
Book.
Call or text?
Uh, neither. I guess.
Which is why we live in the mountains, Flagstaff, Arizona. Fair. Monochrome or colorful?
Colorful.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll come back.
Here's why. Wait, just a quick aside. Okay, so like I love images that are monochromatic if they have like three colors. This is why this is a stupid answer, because I don't care for black and white work very much.
Okay.
So I'll say that.
But like besides art, like,
It's really hard.
you know, I know. Because I
Earth
feel like
tones.
you
Earth
dress
tones.
right. Okay, fine. That was dumb. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Rain or shine?
Mm, both on the same day?
Do you have any superstitions?
No,
None.
nothing.
Something you can't live without.
My Kindle.
What's a secret talent of yours?
I think that like first of all, I can wiggle my eyes, which is a
What?
whole thing. Just like listen, I'm gonna just here. You don't need nobody needs to see this, but like I can like you won't be able to see it probably. You won't be able to see it on this video. Okay, so that aside, they wiggle really, really fast. That's one thing. Yeah.
All right. Where do you get your inspiration from?
You know what? This is not a rapid fire question, so
You want
I
to
called
save it?
bluff
You want to
on that.
table it? We'll
Yeah.
table it. Okay, we'll come back to that one. What celebrity do you want to be BFFs with?
Taylor Swift.
One thing on your bucket list.
Oh, I this is so silly. I really want to attend different types of funerals around the world.
Something you can't do, but wish you could. Attend
Things.
different kinds of funerals.
No, that'll happen. Yeah, I can't sing at all, and I really wish that I could. I'm very tone deaf.
Favorite color?
Yellow.
Guilty pleasure TV show.
Oh, guilty. I don't have any shame around my TV.
All right, favorite TV show.
Star Trek.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Teleportation.
What's one item you carry with you at all times?
My Kindle.
Really? Like even in your purse and stuff everywhere?
Yes, it is
Like,
always with me.
like when we're at condo, you have your Kindle on you?
1000%.
Like in
Yeah.
case none of the 200 other creators around you are interesting, you can just whip out your Kindle.
Listen, the thing is, books will never let you down. I mean, unless that they do. But, you know, but then you can just switch to the next one really easily, much easier than humans.
So I can feel that because we were both, was it last Sony trip or the 2 trips ago that we hid in the trees because we were both so overstimulated.
It was 2 trips ago. Yeah, we hid in a bush and
yeah,
just like
you were like, you and I were looking at each other like there is a lot going on. There are a lot of people. We have to talk to a lot of people. And I was like, are you okay? And I'm pretty sure you said, I need a tree. And
yeah.
there was like, we were in wide open space, but there was this little cluster of trees. And I was like, come here. And we just
Yeah.
sat in the trees.
And then I had to do an interview afterwards that was filmed. And I remember whoever was filming it was like, can I just pick this out of your hair? And they like pulled a leaf out of my hair. It was so
Don't
funny.
mind me.
But yeah, like yesterday I went out of my house for 5 hours and I completely forgot my phone, but I had my Kindle. So.
What one word would you use to describe the last 3 years?
Dear, my goodness. Um, I'm gonna use a hyphenated term and say grief positive, actually.
Perfect. I'm going to save that one. What's the quality you most cherish in a friend?
Loyalty,
How do you recharge?
reading. I'm very one note over here.
All right, those are my rapid fires.
They were
I've,
good.
I've circled. Thank you.
How do you recharge, Monica?
I did research. I recharge usually just well, number one, I don't talk to people. Like I have to just not talk to people.
Yeah.
And so it's either reading or out in the garden or just doing some kind of arty, crafty something that has no redeemable value whatsoever, but takes my mind off of something.
Yeah, although as an aside, I feel like next time you do one of these or something, you should tell everybody about how you're going to start a roadside stand where you sell pressed flower greeting cards. So just know everyone.
In my
That's
spare time. And maybe some of my knitted scarves that I can also add that to my roadside stand.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about where you get your inspiration from.
Yeah, that was that. How do you expect anybody to rapid fire that answer?
Well, I was hoping I could sneak it in
Yeah,
and
it was a good try. And I could have answered it really quickly, probably, but then it would have been so,
try.
it would have felt like a lie. So, first of all, this question of inspiration, I think that I think it's just such a misunderstood word. I think that people think that it's a thing. Like there's this well that never ends and like when you go dip into it, you're always going to bring something up and I don't think that's true. And so that's why I think it's a hard question to answer right away to be like, "Oh, I go hiking every day and I get ideas." Because like yeah, that happens most days, but they're not really good ideas most days, you know? So like what is inspired? You know, that's like my question is it inspiration or are you trying to get an idea that is inspired? And so I think that it comes from a lot of different places. And one of them for me is having an experience and feeling a lot of feelings, and then later analyzing why I felt that way and how that might touch other people. So for me, the inspiration is very often linked with how I want to impact others, not just from myself, you know? So it comes from personal experience and it comes from a lot of analyzing of what I find interesting and what I find moving in the world. But then also I think like the idea fully forms when I question how will other people interpret this or how can I help other people with this idea?
So when you create an image, do you have that finished image pretty concrete in your mind before you start?
Yeah, like 99% of the time.
Before you even shoot the first
Yeah,
frame, like
yeah.
not compositing, but actually you're going out with intention
Yes.
to
This
make.
is why, like, I'm so not a photographer. I never have my camera with me. I'm not, like, if I see something that looks interesting, I might take a picture with my phone and then just like think about why that was interesting, but I never, like, I would say less than 1% of the time do I take a picture without knowing why I'm taking it and how it's going to be used later. You know, like I just don't operate like that. And I'm a very bad photographer. You know, like if you said like go out with your camera and take a landscape or a cityscape or a portrait, like it's gonna be subpar for sure. You know, it's just not what I do. It's not how my brain works. I'm not out there like understanding composition very effectively, you know, like that kind of thing.
When you're in the woods by yourself, because you don't shoot with an assistant, a rare
Yeah.
occasion you have
Yeah,
somebody
I'll bring a friend sometimes if I can't
to
carry
like
everything.
saran wrap you to a tree or something.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, in fact, I remember one of the first stories I heard about you was from Michaela and Kayla. You guys were all at a conference together.
Yeah.
And it was after the conference and they were talking about, yeah, we had to go get a coffin for Brooke. And I was like,
That story has been turned into something else,
we have to go
but
get a coffin for
it
Brooke.
was a
And
really
I
good idea.
was like, what?
Yeah.
What's the strangest thing you've put yourself in?
There have been a number of things. Like, I think that the worst thing was putting my head upside down in a little tiny fish tank, probably
That one
because,
you just showed, right? On your
well,
Instagram?
no, that was different actually. I mean, I did, yes, that is true. But there's one that I did like just a few months into creating ever, like in 2009. And I did a back bend off of my couch and then dipped my head upside down into a like a bowl, just a bowl
Yeah.
of water.
Yeah.
And it was like the worst thing. Like I remember I could barely get my head in, and like the way that my like I had to just maneuver my nose exactly like straight. And then I was worried that I was gonna come up and hit my nose on the rim because it wasn't wide enough. And like that was really terrifying. I put myself in lots of different things, like sinks and dryers and freezers and refrigerators and
The first image I remembered of seeing of yours was you in the oven.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that was the first one that I remember distinctly saying, who is this crazy person? Is that a composite? Did she really put herself in the oven? What's happening? Why would
Yeah.
she put herself? And then after that, and after the coffin, I was just like, okay, well, anything goes with Brooke. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I started taking pictures, a couple people said to me, but you're not a model. Like, why are you taking self-portraits if you're not a model? And I was like, well, I'm very much not a model, but like, what do I have that models don't? And I was like, I'm very tiny. I could fit into that oven. And so I started doing things that I was like, a 6-foot model couldn't do that. But my almost five
I'll
foot
show
two self
them.
can.
What is the most surprising thing that people do not know about you?
Oh, I share too much. I guess one of the things related to sharing is that I am far more likely to share my feelings and my emotions and things that have happened to me in my life on the internet than with my friends personally. Like a lot of times my friends come to me and they're like, why did I have to read this on Instagram? Like, why don't I know this? And for some reason, I find it much easier to distill down into like an easy story that I've created that I can then share than to just have a vulnerable conversation with a friend.
Okay, so let's unpack that
Yeah.
because I would not describe you in any way, shape, or form as somebody who is afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So do I just totally misunderstand you and we're actually not friends?
No, you
I
don't
don't
misunderstand
understand.
me. You came into my life at a time where I've tried very intentionally to not have those walls up around my friends.
Got
And
it.
so it hasn't been that way with us. But, friends from that I've had longer, it's definitely like I feel like I don't like to burden people with emotions and stuff. But I feel like if I restory it and I can package it nicely, then I can share it online.
Because you're not scared of the feeling. You're not
No,
scared of feeling feelings. Like I
no.
don't like feeling feelings. I don't
Mhm.
like feelings.
I know. We've
It's a
discussed.
weird, have we talked about this?
Yeah,
We talked, yeah. It's a weird thing. I don't like feelings. You're
yeah,
not like that, but you're just
no,
saying,
yeah. I just
so,
don't want to
so
burden
wait,
people.
what's the most surprising thing then? I'm not clear. What's the most surprising thing?
That I share more about myself online than I do to my closest friends,
Got
probably.
it, got it, got it. Okay. All right. I'll take it. Uh, oh, we're doing great on time. What else do we want to come
Awesome.
back to? Ooh, let me ask you this. Thoughts on AI?
I have like really boring thoughts about AI, mostly that I don't care. That's like my big thing. And I don't care, like I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care if people like it or dislike it, if they use it or don't use it. Like I just feel like it's not that interesting to me personally. Um and I'm not going to be bothered by it, I think that like a lot of people are very upset about it, and I think that's a very valid point, and depending on what your specific job is or how how you're dealing with the rise of people being able to use it for art and portrait purposes and stuff like that. I totally get it. Um, but I just find that, to me, it's like any other tool where, um, I don't know, like when I started my career and for years and years, I refused to use a light. like any external light. I would only use natural light. And people would always be like, your work is like, you're not going to be able to compete if you don't use lights. And I was like, I just don't want to, like it just didn't interest me. And so I didn't do it. And now I do because now it's interesting to me, very sparingly, I will say.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's kind of like that. Like I'm not interested in it right this moment, but I don't think it's bad or good. I think that it has merits on both sides. And one day maybe I'll use it and I don't know. I watched this one of my favorite artists, Maggie Taylor, give a workshop about her work and how she's using AI. And it was so nice to see somebody just embrace it totally. Like this is so cool. I'm going to totally use it. And I loved that. And then I also appreciate artists who are like, I won't touch that because my art is mine. So at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of opinions about AI. I haven't used AI. I think, and people always say, well, aren't you scared you're going to be behind the curve? But I just don't, I don't live in fear like that. Like that's not on my list of fears that I have. Bathtubs, I'm scared of bathtubs, but like, yeah, we can come back to that. But AI is not on my, like, I'm not afraid of being left behind particularly. I feel like there's always a new way to express yourself. So I'm not worried.
Okay. So we're not scared of AI. We are scared of bathtubs.
Yeah.
Is that just an irrational fear? Did something
Oh yeah.
happen to you?
No, listen, there was an episode of Rugrats I just want to share where they got sucked down the drain and it was terrifying to me. And then I accidentally at a sleepover when I was 13 started watching Final Destination and somebody dies gruesomely in a bathtub and I was like, I'm done with bathtubs. Like,
So wait, have you ever done any of your self-portraits in a bathtub?
yeah, and I hate it.
I
Like, I
thought.
really don't like it. And I'm telling you, I would rather jump in the most disgusting pond just filled with gross things than lay in a bathtub.
An empty bathtub.
I'm better with it being empty. The water freaks me out.
Even though in a bathtub you can see through the
Yeah,
water,
yeah,
and in a pond or some of these other things that you have put yourself in, okay,
yeah.
irrational. It's
I mean,
totally.
sometimes I just walk into my bathroom and just the sight of the bathtub upsets me. Like I feel like I'm about to die. And so I have to like close the curtain and
Maybe we should talk about a remodel there and a walk-in shower. Like maybe we should talk about that. What
thankfully
else,
my main bathroom has that.
what else are you afraid of? What else is Brooke Shaden afraid of?
Um, I'm afraid of the dark. Like I'm afraid of very silly things. Like very, like I think a lot about here's something. When I sleep in a bed, I cannot have any limb hanging over the bed. Like I'm very afraid that something's gonna like come up and get me. So that's how I'm living my life over here. Yeah. I
I would
mean,
put all of that under surprising things that people would not guess about you.
I'm also like I won't watch a horror movie. I'm really scared of like scary things. You know what I mean? Like things that are meant to scare kids. That's what the whole genre. I'm afraid of that. I won't watch scary stuff.
Do you think any of your art is scary?
No.
Because it's based in real emotion?
I think just because I made it. I think like still images don't freak me out as much as movies or something like that. But I do have like a distinct lack of fear when it comes to risk taking or like certain things that might hold artists back in big ways in their careers. Like the things that when I mentor artists, I hear that they're afraid of are like fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear that their art isn't good enough, um, fear to take a risk. And I don't fear any of those things. And so I feel like, most people have like an even distribution of fear of like, maybe they're a little afraid of the dark, but they're also like afraid that no one's going to like their art. And I'm like, none of this and all of this.
All of the sand has been put in that box.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I love about you is, and fear about you, is your just deadpan honesty at all times. at all times. So
Yeah, it's something I have to work on.
when I first met you, and we've had this conversation, when I first met you, it was at a Sony event called Creative Space in New York City, and it was 2019, so 5 years in the fall. And I knew obviously who you were. And I knew nobody there. Like I was super, scared. And Kayla said, "Oh, come over and meet Brooke Shaden." And I was like, "Hi, how are you?" And you were like, "Can I just hug you?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is Brooke Shaden and she's hugging me. And I think I love her." And from there, we kind of just clicked really well.
Yeah.
But that interaction has stayed with me for 5 years. Like I will never forget. I think I love you. Can I just give you a hug? And I was like, what? Who is this little tiny person who like would even know who I am? But the funnier part of that story is that when I related this to you last year about how we were with somebody else, and I was saying, somebody asked, how did we meet or whatever? And I relayed this touching, moving story and how, it just has stayed with me. You looked at me dead, like just, I don't remember any of that. That's what you said. I don't remember any of that. And I looked at you and I said, "Brooke, are you kidding me right now?" And you're like, "No, I don't remember." And I was like, "I am so hurt." And you were like, "Well, I'm sorry, but do you want me to lie to you? I don't remember."
I really don't. I feel like I'm forming a memory.
Could you just make it up? Could you just,
I'm trying.
it's coming back to me.
Yeah, yeah, it's
But
coming
it's
back.
not.
But you know what I do remember is all the time since and how much I do love you.
I love you too. I love you too. I'm going to wrap it with, I don't know, I don't see that we have had any questions come through. So somebody just let me know if I'm looking in the wrong place for that. But what I do want to finish oh wait, we do have a question. No, we don't have a question. Okay. We didn't give any time we were so rapid fire. People don't even know what is happening to them right now. But what I thought we would close on is, what is the number one thing that you hope people will learn from you?
I think I think one of the things is to create no matter what. I mean, I think that just it's so easy to be stifled creatively in the environment that we live in, always trying to impress people, always trying to sell something, always trying to be better. And I think that really just I think that growth comes from just doing the thing. And I want to prove to people that you can just do it, to steal Nike's slogan. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to move the needle forward. It just has to be. And that's enough, to just be, to just do it because you love it, because you have something to say. And I think that the more you do that, the more your reasons why come forward and the more your impact is grown and the more you trust yourself as an artist and then people trust you as an artist. And so I think, I think there's just this culture of perfection out there that I do not, even if I wanted to subscribe to that, it would fail utterly because I am so not perfect at what I do. And I'm very aware of that. And I think it's one of my superpowers, to say, like, I don't even care and I'm still going to do it because the passion is more infectious than the art.
I love that. The passion is more infectious than the art. Brookie, what else can I even say about you? I'm so grateful for our friendship. Thank you for joining me on this series. I think you will be the first person that has two parts. We'll get you scheduled for part two because there's so much more we didn't even get to talk about. But I value you so much as an artist and as a friend. And thank you for sharing all of these amazing insights. And I know everybody's going to love it. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I feel the same about you. Thank you.
Thanks to B&H, thanks to Sony. We couldn't have these meetings without you guys, these interviews without your support. And if you're not already a member of the Sony Alpha Female community on Facebook, please go over there and join. It's just a lot of great things that are happening and beautiful friendships like this that happen because of the community. Thanks, everyone.